So Mitch, from what you shared, clearly transparency is pretty important. I think that's part of the motivation of ensuring that when realtors and lenders are working together, that the homeowner has always benefited the most. So when you think about specifically quoting rates and displaying rate information, how does that align with the transparency and the goals of the CFPB today?
Well, transparency and consistency when you're quoting borrower rates is of the utmost importance. First of all, in terms of consistency, all of your potential borrowers have to be treated similarly. That doesn't mean that they all get the same rate quote, but you have to treat them the same way. You have to make your quotes, do your quotes in a common fashion. So one is not treated differently than another. So in fact, your wealthier borrower doesn't get better treatment than your less fortunate borrower. And the CFPB looks at these things. There are a number of different laws that in fact are implicated by both the transparency and the consistency in borrower rate quoting. First of all, you've got fair lending issues. If you treat your consumers differently, you don't even have to worry about disparate impact at that point in time because you're talking about disparate treatments. You're treating them differently. And if in fact it shows that one minority group is being treated somewhat differently than another minority group, you're going to have a big problem on your hands. Consistency is absolutely essential over here. Now, in terms of UDAP, which is the unfair, deceptive, abusive acts and practices, and both the FTC and the CFPB have enforcement authority over UDAP itself, this is a law that's absolutely utilized in this particular arena, and it's very, very dangerous to cross the law. So what is UDAP? What is an unfair, deceptive, abusive act or practice? It's one that a consumer doesn't understand. It's one in which you might have hidden fees. It's one in which you use teaser rates and the consumer isn't aware of that. It's one in which you have borrower rates that are quoted, and then when the borrower comes back to the table, in fact, the rates are much higher. And it was never explained to them what factors come into play that put their rate together. So bait and switch is something that regulators look at, and it's a manner in which they look at rate quoting when in fact it changes. You have to be very, very careful along those lines. You've got to be careful about how you advertise your rates as well. And in fact, just this past August, on August 12th, a lender entered into a $20 million settlement based on deceptive advertising, where products resulted in higher interest rates and fees to the consumer, and they were higher than what was quoted or that was advertised itself. So transparency, consistency, getting it right is what's really important about that. And the third law that's implicated by all of this is FCRA, the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Remember, if you're going to risk-based price, you have specific notices and disclosures that need to be given along those particular lines. So I know, guys, that this is something that you're very interested in, and I know that you're working on a solution on this, which I think is excellent, because it's badly needed in the industry itself. And you can get into a lot of trouble if, in fact, you don't have the transparency and the consistency in the manner in which you're quoting rates to the consumer.